Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again to talk about Your Honor. I'm actually talking about that today because I'm doing a Season 1 review. Now, I did not prepare for this one as much as I would have wanted to, but I'm just kind of tired of it. I'm tired of the show, especially after that finale. That finale really turned me off of the show entirely to the point of where I was kind of considering not even doing a season review. I mean, that's how bad the finale was. It was really a shame because I was excited. I was really into the show, and that last episode just... it ruined everything. Well, it didn't ruin everything, but it ruined everything at the time. I mean, watching it and just seeing the terrible... ugh. But this is a season review. And now, what did everyone watch this show for? I can guarantee that most of the people who watched this show either watched it because it took place in New Orleans, which I can get because I think that New Orleans is a fantastic setting. It's a great, beautiful setting with lots of great people and, you know, lots of great culture, great food, great environments. You know, I really love that setting. And I think that more movies and TV shows should take place there because I like it. And, but with this show, maybe that's why people watched it. And then also it has Bryan Cranston. So it was kind of marketed as this is the next Bryan Cranston show. And I think that was the thing that made most people watch it. They saw Your Honor, and then they saw starring Bryan Cranston. And what was the poster for the show? Was it a picture with Adam and like a justice, that justice statue with the weights on it? No. It was a big ass picture of Bryan Cranston's face looking conflicted, sad, upset. You know, he's just like, what am I gonna do? You know, that's this show. That's the whole show. And that was the picture that represented the whole show. And I think that was really... and besides that, I mean, I don't really know what other people watched it for, because those are the two main things that really stick out to me. And what do we get? Well, we got this great concept that really did not pan out over time. It was really ruined by, I would say, terrible pacing. I mean, it started off okay. The first episode was kind of weirdly paced because it was basically all set up and focused on that one horrible event to the point of where it was soap opera-y. And then after that, it went all these weird directions, kind of like how I'm doing when I'm talking about this. It just went from here to there to here to there, and you never really knew what show this was trying to be. Is this trying to be a show about Michael being a judge and doing all this corrupt shit? Is it a show about the hypocrisy of the gangster's family and how, like, you know, their son died and then they're using his funeral as a way to put out a hit on someone and all that kind of stuff? Is it a show about Michael's wife who's dead and, like, we're trying to figure out who did it? Is it a show about the Desire Gang? Is it a show about this or that? Like, we never really knew what show it was. At least I didn't, because a lot of episodes would have unequal amounts of stories. Like, episode 5 was just basically almost entirely the Desire Gang story, and with a little bit of Michael and his blackmail BS story that really should have just put in the next episode. But that was a terrible episode, mostly because it just felt like a filler episode. and it was full of all this like weirdness that like it just did not fit with the show. And then other episodes too, they had all this unequal stuff in it. Is this episode like it's just so like confused and just so poorly organized. You know, every episode in a TV show should mostly have an equal amount of each story. If there's 5 stories, every episode should have 1/5 of that of those. Well, okay, 1/5 of that episode should be about each of those 5 stories. I mean, you know, the only exception is when you have like highlight scenes where a scene needs to go on for a longer period of time. Like in the last episode where we had a very long scene of Carlo and his testimony scene, which was of course used as like a typical cliche Hollywood, you know, courtroom drama scene. You know, we got to have a long version of that, but yeah, that was the main problem I had with the show, was the writing and how unorganized it was and how discombobulated everything was. Everything needed to be organized in a tighter, more concise fashion. And I'm not trying to sound like smart by saying, I'm just saying the truth. And so I want to get into more specifics. Another thing I'd like to rag on is the music. Oh God. The music in the show is so forced. It feels like someone took their hand and is just fisting me. And just fisting music into me. Like, Marco, the scene is sad. And you're going to feel sad one way or the other. And then they just jam their fist up there with the music. And I'm like, oh, take it out. Get out. Oh, stop it. You're hurting me. That's the music on this show. It is so forced. It is so melodramatic and just like, ugh. You know, it just makes you want to take a shower. It makes you feel like you got chocolate all over you. You got like dirt and mud and you're just covered in shit and you got to take a shower, man. That was the music for this season. And it was very overwhelming. It was very annoying. It was, I hated the music, and that's something I never really talked about, because I kind of felt like every time I criticized something, it would get another person to you know, tune off and not really listen to what I'm saying, because a lot of people, when they listen to reviews, they listen to one little thing, and then they cut you off, and they turn you off, and they don't listen to what you're actually saying, and that's one of the things I never really talked about, and I could have talked about it every single episode. I hated the music so much. If I had a choice, I would literally turn off all the music of the entire show. I mean, it never worked for me. The only time it worked was with the soundtrack, where they would play actual songs. Well, not the You Got the Power song, but there was one episode where it started out, I think it was like episode 3 or 4, and it started out with like a Johnny Cash song. That was really good music. But there was another episode where they played the You Got the Power like cover version, and I was like, ugh. I wanted to puke so badly from that terrible song, terrible cover of that song, I mean. And so, yeah, the music, the music was terrible. And the music really, you know, when you're just watching something and you want to like it, but there's like other things that go on that make you just not like it for some reason. The music really took me out of the show and made me like just completely like, God, just turn it off. It made me suffer. I was suffering listening to that music. And I hope the person who did the music, I hope they get better and they do better music for other things. But that music that they did for Your Honor was just so forced. I hated it. Now let's talk about the episodes. I'm going to rank all the episodes from best to worst. My favorite episode is part 9 easily. This took a lot of thinking because obviously it's got storylines in it that never pay off. But actually it is a really good episode. It's really well paced. It's slower. It's very to the point though, even though it is slow. Like that they have like an equal amount of stuff going on. There's a lot of great character in it, a lot of great scenes, a lot of great acting. It's just a very well-rounded episode. And my second favorite would be part 2. This is the episode that really made me fall in love with the show. I really liked part 2. It was just almost perfect. It was so well balanced and a greatly written episode. And then also part 4 was really good. You know, part 4 did something that a lot more shows need to do. They had an infamous Showtime dinner scene. That's the scene that really made this episode for me. Aside the fact that you got Elizabeth, whose character was like a titan, and you know, they didn't even use her even though she was like the strongest character of the show. Like, she would just destroy Michael if she found out the truth. And I wanted to see more of her. And the fact that, you know, all she got in the finale was to be used as a plot device to tell Adam that his mom cheated on Michael. I mean, ugh. God, what a shame. What a waste of that actress. Talented actress. You wasted that actress. What a shame. But they had a dinner scene. Basically, in Californication, it was kind of like a commonplace thing. For every season, they would have a scene where all the main characters would somehow at one point sit down to dinner. And it was just a perfect scene because you would get this great comedy of all these different characters interacting, and you would really feel the emotion of all of these people being in each other's lives and the impact they have on each other, and how you know, they're really important to each other and they're really important to the show. Well, in part 4 they had a dinner scene and it was really great, and it really did exactly what the Californication dinner scenes did, and it really elevated the show. And they had another dinner scene later on. I can't remember if it was episode 8 or 9 too. That was a weird one, because it also had Elizabeth, and she was basically comatose in that scene. And so, then part 1 was the next best. It was just kind of a good start. It's right there almost in the middle. It was pretty good start. It just had pacing issues for me. I didn't like how little character we got from a lot of the side characters. And then Jimmy, who's supposed to be the main villain. We'll talk more about the main villain later. And then the next best one was part 6, which really redeemed some of the stories from part 5. And then the next best one was part 7. The next best one was part 3. And then part 8, which was fine. And then part 5, which was horrible. And obviously it was horrible because I was criticizing the episode fairly, and then I got criticized and called a racist because I'm criticizing a show. That's another thing that comes up, because it feels like with that episode, like I wasn't allowed to criticize it at all, or else I would get attacked. And that just shows how bad that episode truly is. Because if there's any show or movie where like it has to have this army of malicious, evil fanboys come and attack you for criticizing a show, that means that show is poor. And that means that show needs protecting from fanboys. So yeah, part 5, ugh. And then the worst episode of the entire show was part 10. I mean, oh God. Part 10, ugh. They basically, I've already said this before, but they basically slammed the door in the faces of all the fans. let's say it's a line of fans. And this happened, I met Chloe Moretz this one time. Wasn't a big deal. And I met her at this cupcake shop named Sprinkles. And I stood in line for about 3 or 4 hours trying to meet her. Partly because she was an hour late to the event. And she was basically, at first, autographing and taking pictures. And then after that, she was only taking pictures. She was trying to go really fast. And it was just a big, just headache because it felt like, the line was so long. It felt like at one point that maybe I wouldn't be able to meet her and that we went there just for nothing. And that would have been so awful and so terrible. And that's exactly how it felt like in this show's finale. That's how it feels like when all these shows cancel themselves with this finale where, they got all these rich storylines. They got all these great stories and little subplots and characters and all these things. And they just slam the door in your face and just say, no, we are not doing a season 2. That's what it felt like with this finale. At least with part 5, there was room for more episodes. And it's like, okay, episode 6 came. And episode 6 was really good. But part 5, on the other hand, no. And then with this finale, it was also extremely dissatisfying. It was a huge spit in the face to a lot of the fans with the storylines. And even with Carlo, I can't wait to talk about Carlo because I got thoughts on that terrible character. But, the main villain, he basically becomes irrelevant. The main character, the whole episode, it's just him getting these Emmy bait scenes where he's just acting his ass off. And then we get all these really terrible conclusions with characters. Like with Lee, I really liked her character a lot. And I thought that she was a great character, even though she really did not fit with Michael at all as a love interest. But she was great. I really liked her. And her last scene was her, basically telling Eugene to fuck off and then just leaving the show. That's her last scene. What a pile of shit. And then Nancy, she's mad at Michael because she found out the truth. And so basically she's not even going to investigate his wife's death anymore, probably, because she's mad at him. And so, you know what I mean? How stupid is all that stuff? It just makes me want to puke. And there's so much other stuff that I could go on and on about with the finale, about how rushed and how much of an insult that terrible episode was, compared to episode 9, which was really well done and well written, and it's just what a terrible waste of a show. And so now I'm going to talk about the characters, my favorite ones and my least favorite ones. My favorite characters, first off, you got Charlie, the mayor, the corrupt mayor. I really liked him. He did a great job acting. I wish that there was more of him. I wish that he would have played a bigger part, because he seemed like he had the potential to do some really evil shit. And I felt like he was kind of wasted. And then Elizabeth, of course, I love Elizabeth. She's a titan. She's a badass, strong female character in a world where all these female characters are just cardboard cutouts who have no personality, like Captain Marvel, all those types of shitty characters. We got Elizabeth, who just, she calls you out if she knows you're lying. And she is just badass. And they really wasted her too. And then we got Lee. She was not a good love interest because she really did not have any chemistry with Michael, but she was a great character. She was sort of like the investigator type character, the one who we see talking to witnesses and investigating. And then, of course, Nancy also did the same thing. I like Nancy too, although I feel like at the end in particular, she became trash because she's like... I mean, she's basically so mad at Michael. I mean, she's not even going to investigate his wife's death anymore. I mean, what a terrible character. Uh, and then we got Michael, of course. Michael was a great character because he was basically Bryan Cranston. I got to admit too, if Michael was played by someone different, he wouldn't be a great character, because it's basically riding off of the fact that it's Bryan Cranston, and him having to do illegal things to save his family. What does that remind you of? Breaking Bad. It's basically Breaking Bad reboot, but with a different story, a different setting, with the same main character, kinda. And but still, I mean, I did criticize him a lot for being evil, for being a terrible judge. I do have to admit, I loved his acting in the finale because he showed his humanity. It was sort of like a Hamlet type of thing, where the whole show he was this evil person and he like had to put on this persona, and then at the end he really brought out his true person. And so I think that if that were done right, that could have been really good. And so that's a shame. And then Fia, I love Fia. She's great. I hope that she has a great acting career ahead of her, because she did a really good job at playing the gangster's daughter. She was a very interesting character. She had all that teen angst. She had she was sort of like the heart of the show, because she was like an innocent person. She didn't really know her dad was evil, I guess, from what she said. And she lost her brother and all that stuff, and she was a really great character.